HDR or flash? It's the age-old debate that's been going on for thousands of years. Okay, well maybe not that long, but still, the people are wanting to know what is better, HDR or flash. Let's test them both out head-to-head to find out. So if you've been doing real estate photography for any amount of time, or you're simply just researching it, you've probably heard of both of these terms. But first, let me quickly explain both of these techniques in case you don't already know what they are. HDR stands for high dynamic range, which is the process of taking multiple bracketed photos at different exposure levels, then blending them together for one final image. And then you have flash, also known as flambient. And this is where you take one ambient photo along with several other flash photos, then blend those together for one final image. Now, let's match them up head to head in different categories to see if one is better than the other. All right, so let's test out the speed for both of these techniques. I'm gonna be starting with flash. I already have my framing set up and the settings are gonna stay the same between both of them. All right, let's see here. Go ahead and start the clock. All right. Getting my flash frame, or I'm sorry, my ambient frame there. And then let's go on into the flash frames. There's one. I'm gonna be doing 2 flash frames for this test because that's how I would shoot it. All right, good deal. Now let's go ahead and review the photos real quick, make sure we're all set. That frame looks good, that frame looks good. All right, and stop the clock. All right, so it took 32 seconds to get all of those frames done. Now let's test out HDR. All right, so the framing is already set. It is the exact same framing as the flash, and let's go ahead and start the clock. All right, it took it that quick. I'm gonna review the images real quick to make sure they're good, and we're good time. All right, so it only took 11 seconds to get that done. Obviously a lot quicker than flash. So the clear winner here for speed would be HDR. So clearly the winner here for speed is HDR. It was a lot faster than doing the flash ambient technique. And this brings us to our next test, which is quality. Let's take those same photos that we just took, put them side by side, and then compare the results. So right away, you actually see that both of them are pretty similar. However, there are some main differences here. The flash ambient technique has more vibrant and accurate colors, as well as less highlight bloom around the highlight areas like the light bulbs and the windows. In person, the colors are closest to what you see in the flash ambient frame. The HDR picture is not bad by any means, and this would still be a standard for real estate photography. However, the flash picture overall just pops a little bit more and looks cleaner. Now, to be fair, that scene was really easy to shoot. It had a lot of natural colors and a lot of natural light. So both of those examples were pretty close. But what happens when you're in a situation where it's more difficult to shoot and the colors of the frame matter more? Let's take this image that I took of the kitchen where it had these blue teal cabinets, and let's see the results from both. So as you can see here, the flash image has more accurate colors of how these teal cabinets actually looked. The HDR image looks a little bit too vibrant, and you could probably mess with this in editing. However, it's still not going to be the same. Also, the reflections on the side of the refrigerator are maintained a lot better with the flash frame. You can actually zoom in on the HDR picture and see a handprint that is on the side of the fridge. And in the flash frame, you can't really see it as much because of the flash took down that reflection. Overall, when you use flash, you end up getting more accurate and rich colors and details in your photographs. So I'm pretty surprised at these results actually, because when you put them side by side, they do look pretty similar. However, for the quality test, I have to give it to flash just because it gives a better polished look and the colors do look better. So now let's take both of these techniques and see how long it takes to edit them versus how much it costs to outsource them. Now, I personally don't edit my photos anymore just for efficiency purposes. However, if you plan on editing your own photos, it's really gonna vary based on a lot of factors. But if you plan to do your own editing, this is gonna depend on how skilled at editing you are. But in most cases, flash ambient does take longer to edit than HDR. Because with flash, you were actually having to hand blend these layers together, whereas HDR, you can still hand blend them together, but there are other options just for merging them together in Lightroom and spitting out one final image. But if you're wanting to outsource your photos, here are some examples from actual editors and their pricing, that way you can compare. And as you can see here, flash ambient blending typically is more expensive because it does take a little bit longer to edit. So the clear winner in this category would have to be HDR. So what do you think? What is better for real estate photography, HDR or flash? So I actually don't think that one is better than the other because they both have their specific place. HDR is faster to shoot and cheaper to edit, and honestly, it is completely fine for real estate photography standards, and this is actually what I use most of the time. But doing flash ambient is going to give you that higher end polished look that is just more accurate to the colors that are in real life. It's really going to just depend on what kind of work you are doing with real estate photography. I mean, if it requires higher end work, some of your clients are gonna need flash ambient instead of HDR. Flash ambient is definitely harder to learn. It has a little bit steeper of a learning curve than HDR, and it's gonna cost more money and time to edit these images. At the end of the day, it really just matters what you wanna do in your business and the workflows that you want to adopt. Guys, if you enjoyed this video and you wanna learn more about real estate photography, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You don't have to, but it would be nice if you did. Honestly, I love doing this stuff and I want to help as many people as possible on achieving the dreams of becoming a real estate photographer full time. That's all I have for now. I'll see you in the next one.